important that you do this. And the concept number one is Nike, democratizing athletic identity. And what we're looking at here is the visionary gap and what Nike saw in a gap out there when they first started developing the brand. In the 1970s, if you take it back a few years, athletic gear was for athletes, professional athletes, serious athletes. So really, if you weren't competing, you weren't really an athlete. And the industry, unfortunately, treated you accordingly. So I played college football at Nebraska, finished up at University of North Dakota, and I can tell you that we had the best gear in the world, but very few others on campus had this. So Phil Knight and Bill Bowerman saw the gap. Millions of people engaging in athletic activities, running, playing basketball, working out, not just professional or college athletes, but being treated as casual consumers, not athletes, was the opportunity that they saw with the product that they were making. So the gap that they saw wasn't about better shoes, it was about identity, about democratizing what it means to be an athlete. So that was the first brand that actually democratized what it means to be an athlete. They inspired normal, regular athletes to aspire to be great and utilizing their product to do so. So what was their narrative engine? And I like to call this a narrative engine because you need to have one as well. You can call it a purpose, whatever you want to call it. And their narrative engine at Nike in the early days of Nike's development was, if you have a body, you're an athlete. 8 words that transformed an industry. It wasn't, we make the best athletic shoes. It wasn't performance and innovation, but a statement about human identity and people that felt like an athlete felt. And again, I go back to inspiration and aspiration. These are things that Nike achieved in their business and things that they wanted athletes to be able to also feel when they're wearing their product. So when we look at these 8 words that transform this industry, it was really something that we wanted to make sure that we put in that visionary brand, that everybody understood what this meant and the success that it created for a brand like Nike. So when you look at this narrative, it really did everything a great narrative engine should do, and you should apply this to your brand if you don't have one. You should have this. And here's the criteria about creating a narrative engine for your brand, product, or service. Let me give you a few bullet points here. And you might want to write these down because it'll help you when you whiteboard what your purpose is or what your narrative engine is for your company, brand, product, or service. It's about cultural change, not products. That's the first thing. It's simple and memorable. Number 3 is it polarizes. You believe it or you don't. Number 4 is it makes decisions easier. And number 5, it attracts believers, your community. That's where the loyalty curve comes in. This is where that customer lifetime value comes in for your brand. Again, this narrative did everything. A great narrative engine should do, again, let me give you these 5. It's about cultural change, not products. Too many people focus on products. It's not what's going to make the difference in your brand and disrupting an industry. It's a cultural change. It's simple and it's memorable. Number 3 is it polarizes people, and that's okay. You believe it or you don't. Number 4 is it makes decisions easier. Number 5 is it attracts believers, which you need. Customer lifetime value, building a community that's going to trust your brand. So how did Nike apply these visionary principles? And this goes back to Chronicle 3. For those that you have listened to Chronicle 3, it's a consistent brand experience, is what I touched on in Chronicle 3. And what that means for Nike and what it means for you and how you can apply it to your brand is every touch point reinforces you're an athlete. Now, this goes to Nike specifically, but plug and play with this. Every touch point in your company, brand, product, or service does what? Number 2, products. From elite athlete to everyday wear, all designed with an athletic mindset. You can be a great athlete and transform yourself as a result of wearing our product. Believe it or don't believe it. Nike was successful in selling that positioning. The next is retail. Nike stores treat customers like athletes, not shoppers. Everybody's an athlete. If you have a body, you're an athlete. And the next is their marketing. The campaigns celebrated all forms of athletic achievement, big and small. Again, it's the inspiration through aspiration that Nike was successful at. And the next is partnerships. You're going to need this. Athletes who embody determination, not just winners. And the next is digital. And this is a new one that a lot of brands aren't familiar with, but most need to understand artificial intelligence and digital marketing strategy, apps and experiences that support athletic goals. And I talk about this a lot, is you're not in the business of selling products as much as you think you are. You're in the business of providing value to your customer beyond product purchase. Is again, I go back to the analogy, which most people understand, and I use it again, is let's say a marathoner. They can buy shoes from anybody, and everybody has the same positioning on the features and benefits. What is the point of difference when a marathoner buys one shoe over the other? Yes, the product matters. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is, what are you going to provide to them that the others cannot provide? And that is digital. You're going to provide value to that marathoner. How do you work with them on enhancing their stride? How do you enhance their form? How do you bring their mile time down? All of these things are values beyond product. And there's too many brands that call themselves brand that are just product companies, or even worse, commodity brands that call themselves brands. So that isn't where you want to be. And the next is from Chronicle 2. Nike and what I call the architecture of disruption. And what Nike did is killed traditional retail relationships to go direct to consumer. Next is they cannibalized footwear business to build apparel empire. The next is they disrupted their own wholesale model for Nike Plus digital experiences. And they continuously innovated on product even when current products dominated. And this goes back to the supply and demand curve I talk about. I talk about Apple frequently about this supply and demand curve. Those that don't understand how to utilize the supply and demand curve as a weapon for your brand are missing a massive opportunity. So when I talk about continuously innovating product, even when current products dominate, what I mean by this is supply and demand is that you've got your early adopters on Nike, early innovators with Apple. And let's say that Nike had on the supply and demand curve on the backside, before it hits the backside on late adopters, it hits a peak in the supply and demand curve. Most brands wait to bleed that product out until it no longer is something that turns, what they call inventory turn rates that they want that product to do. What Nike and Apple and these innovative brands, these generational brands, They're continuously innovating on what I call the innovation pipeline, meaning that they feel secure in getting rid of a product that's at the peak of demand and then creating something in the pipeline that moves back to early adopters, increases their average MSRP, and as a result, higher margins. But very few brands, if any, have the balls to do that. They want to bleed that thing out to the late adopters and then maybe put something on the front end for early adopters. You cannot call yourself an innovative brand if you adopt that philosophy. They don't protect success. They build on it by disrupting it. Think about that statement. They don't protect success. They build on it by disrupting it. The next thing they do, and this is from Chronicle 4, is crises navigation. When Nike faced crises, and they had a few, as we all probably know, labor practices, Colin Kaepernick controversy, COVID disruption, they held their narrative constant while adapting tactics. That's why I say you always have a goal and a vision for your brand, and it's called switchback leadership. Because you're always going to be maneuvering to the right and to the left, but your core focus is always on the end goal. You never change your positioning, your messaging, just because you're disrupted by something that's temporary. What they did is they fixed, if you have a body, you're an athlete, in standing for what you believe. They were fluid on manufacturing practices, retail strategy, product focus, and communication channels. They were continually feeding these. And the results were not just market dominance, but cultural impact. Nike didn't just sell shoes. And when you have your product, service, whatever it may be, you're not selling product, you're selling a culture that people want to join proactively. They changed how millions of people think about themselves. Someone running their first 5K calls themselves an athlete without hesitation. Think about that. That is a groundswell for Nike. That's cultural change. That's visionary branding. So what can you, as a company, brand, product, whatever it is, what can you extract from Nike? Number one is find your identity level narrative, not product features. Number two is develop absolute consistency across touch points. Number three is be willing to disrupt your own success. And I can tell you that's going to be the hardest for you to do, but you need to do it. Number four is hold vision constant. Hold while adapting tactics during crises. So let's talk about another brand. So that's